following video is brought to you in part by Ridiculous Top 10s. Do you like funny things? Do you like supporting brand new YouTube channels? Do you have 90 seconds to spare? If you answered yes to any of these questions, visit youtube.com/@ridiculous top 10s. Good afternoon, my dungeon boss brethren. It is another Fad Friday. Today we're going to be taking a look at an unboxing of one of the new heroes, Koros, who is likely going to be a major player in the PvP landscape. At least that's kind of what I think. I have not upgraded him yet, so we're going to go through all of his ascensions and his stats and stuff and see what he looks like, find out his abilities, traits, you name it. We're going to take a look. We have not actually rolled him into any usage yet, except for the basic campaign dungeons that he was part of, so I have not really used him myself. I also lack the XP potions to bring him up to a level where I can use him in PvP yet, so that'll be first stuff further down the line. But let's go ahead and take a look at Koros. I don't really know what Koros is. I believe he's a monster, but he's this combination of a lion and a scorpion. Those are the two big things. He's not even a monster, so he's an ancient and a warrior. Um, he is just kind of a lion plus a scorpion. I don't know if Koros in general is a mythological beast or something from Greek mythology, anything like that. Um, First and foremost, though, if you look at him, he is a gold hero. So he is going to be limited to gold and open league. With that end, I think he might actually be fabulous in gold league, just because he is rather powerful. His character art to begin with is, like many, very unassuming. He has a nice little growl, if you will, but his body art is pretty weak. His tail is pretty weak. Nothing pretty impressive like his portrait is. Out of the gate, his abilities. He's got a load of 4 of them. So he is fast. That already that makes him fabulous. Anybody that's fast is always good. He will nerf his attacks a little bit, but if I recall correctly, Koros is going to be used more for his utility than his damage, if you will. It might be a little bit of both, but we'll see here. So he does have the fast trait, which is always nice. Magical protection, 25% damage reduction from magical attack. That's the equivalent of being armored. He's essentially armored from magical attacks. Now you do have to be careful about what a magical attack is. Know your enemy when you use them in PvP so that you know who's going to hurt him the worst. So he's not a beast, but let's just say he was a beast. William comes at him with his sword. That's a melee attack. That's a physical attack. It's not magic. Someone like Ice Pick. Ice Pick is going to do elemental water damage, and Ice Pick is a caster. Ice Pick might nuke the heck out of him because of elemental advantage and such like that. So, or sorry, the whole point of that was that he would be protected from Ice Pick. Rather, he wouldn't be protected from um, William. So know your enemy. Physical attacks are going to hurt him way more than magical attacks, so be careful of who you actually use him for. One of my favorite abilities is the Shredder trait. Deals 25% additional damage to non-armored targets. There are a lot of non-armored heroes out there, and a lot of them get used in PvP, so this is almost an innate ability for him that anybody he attacks is going to do extra damage. So good little trait there. Then lastly here, going right back to that ice pick example, Magic Mangler. Truth be told, I've not seen this trait before, so I don't know if this is unique to him. But I've not seen this one yet, but there's a few people that I haven't really looked over their abilities, so. Deals an additional 100% damage to casters and healer enemies. We do love that. So when this character deals damage to a caster or healer, that enemy also loses 1 energy. Okay, so out of the gate here, out of the gate, before we even get his first and second ascension, PvP implications. You're looking at reduction of energy right from the start. That is amazing. Now, fortunately for you PvP defenders out there, or anyone that's going to go against Koros, obviously that's only for casters and healers, so you don't lose out all of your people getting energy nuked, or that would be seriously overpowered. I would have to make him a slow hero for that to be a fair trade at all. But that's going to be pretty handy. So um, this would have been great for Silver League, for somebody like Nub Nub, for example, because one, he had already hit Nub Nub for a ton of damage with Elemental Advantage, but then preventing that first round heal from Nub Nub is always fabulous. Um, Using him in Gold League or even Open League, something like paired with Jin, for example, you may not see the same level of effect there because if you silence and then remove the energy on the same exact turn, it's almost the same exact mechanism. It's still a first turn where they don't get to do much. So you probably wouldn't want to pair those two up. You'd be kind of wasting your efforts there. Um, but keep in mind that this is anytime they deal damage to it. So you could silence one turn and then you could damage them the next turn. There's a number of different ways that this could trigger. So if you play this right, because Koros is fast, you might be able to permanently cripple a healer from being able to actually do their heals because you could remove energy each and every time. Interesting thing to try and play out, might be something that I ultimately look at here. Looking at his first abilities, we don't care about the attack, but his first actual skill is the Purging Pyre. This was his trademark ability from the original game. Let's go ahead and hit the upgrade instead. So ranged physical attack. Keep in mind this is a physical attack on all enemies for X number of damage. Purge is up to 1 buff and applies a stack of burned. So let's start with that first. Purging a buff, the reason that I would be using Koros, for example, um, generally speaking, is going to be to remove taunts. Does that mean that you have to skip the first round attack with him? It kind of depends on the team you're going against. If there's some forced taunts, I don't know how many of those exist in Gold League. I've seen it a number of times in Silver League already, where we have a few forced taunters out there with a few people using Meryl, a few people using Spitfire. There are some taunts that come up there. Being able to purge that is critical for beating some of those teams. So after that, the stack of burn are really negligible for the most part. That's just out there. And then this character gains 1 stack of evading. Um, Always love evading when we have it on offense. I hate it when it's on defense. Um, Good for 3 turns, and you get 1 stack of each buff purged. Now that is actually a pretty cool feature. So that could be a double-edged sword. You purge taunting from somebody, and then that comes right back to taunting on Koros. I don't know if that's a balancing mechanism, but it's rather interesting. So be careful of what you purge, I guess. That's a very interesting mechanic. Now, forcing someone to taunt and then getting evading on top of that, that might actually be pretty nifty because you get somebody to try to attack him and it's wasted turns, the same as with Rayla's team. You know, you force somebody to attack her, but then she has invulnerability. This might end up being a similar mechanism to it. Um, we'll have to see in the long run once he gets up to the higher levels, or the quote unquote at level when you're playing, to see how his health and defense stacks up, if he's going to be a glass cannon or not. Not really sure. But I do like that first skill. It's rather interesting. I'll have to give that a look. His first ascension, as far as Celestials, 1 and 1. Nothing overly expensive there. Certainly isn't a whole host of ones that we have to do. So first ascension should be easy enough for everybody to get. 12, 6, 1, 1. That's relatively cheap. There we go. Character art. He got some stripes and he got his tail a little bit more glowy. So good for him. What does that give him? Back to the stats tab. This now gave him the Arcane Devourer. Devourer. Immune to silence. Oh, baby. Now that there is, it's a game changer. There's not a lot of people immune to silence. There simply is not. Is Koros going to be the answer to any of the light team meta? Maybe, maybe not. But being immune to silence is a great start for that, especially with him being fast. Thing with any of the light teams or any of the really solid PvP teams as it is, you have to remember that there are some buffs out there that cannot be purged, copied, or removed, or stolen, whatever it might be. So there might be some instances where Koros is still just as ineffective as anybody else. So, example, you're not going to steal Agnon's Granite form. Just can't do it. Can't purge it. Can't do anything with it. Um, but this immune to silence is going to be great for PvPs. So let's see what the rest of it does. Um, Immune to taunt, even better. So I love anybody that's immune to taunt. Um, there's not a lot of people that have that right now. So when this character defeats a caster or healer, they gain 1 energy and heal for 10% of their max health. Not 10% of the damage, 10% of the max health. Thing that I need to know is the word there. So they gain 1 energy and heal for, is it for Koros's max health or the max health of the person that he killed? Um, Truthfully, it'll probably amount to about the same, probably within 100 or so points. So probably not anything super critical to worry about, just semantics. But I am curious which one it actually is. So always love a good self heal for anybody. You don't see it too much on fast heroes, especially glass cannon power heroes. So um, nice little trait there. First ascension trait is pretty handy. His second ability, ignited ingestion, melee physical bite attack on target for a number. Heals for 50% of the damage dealt, another self heal, or 100% if the target is burned. Okay, so PvP defense, great, because he does Purging Pyre on his first one. Second turn rolls around, and he gets 100% healing of that damage. So keep that in mind if you're going against a Koros team that Koros is likely going to self-heal himself right back up to almost full health on his second turn. So might need to do something to take him out sooner rather than later. Things like freezing, for example, or just pile on the damage to him. Again, I don't know his defense and his health pool, if he's going to be pretty easy to kill or not. That remains to be seen. And then after all that, it does apply 2 stacks of burned. Again, burn is not something that I write home about, with the exception of instances where burn also plays a passive into something else, like that 50% heal versus 100% heal. Or if you happen to put him on a team that also uses burn mechanics, and you're helping out a different hero. Otherwise, I don't put a lot of emphasis on burn. It's not like it's totally stops health regeneration or anything like that, and it's also not a ton of extra damage. It's a few ticks of a percent, but doesn't really do much in my opinion. It can be a nuisance if you're struggling right around that lower 10% threshold where you'd be alive if he wasn't burned and dead if he was, but you know that's a story for another day. Um, So let's look at cooldowns first. Cooldown of 6, so you're not getting this off very much. Cooldown of 4, not as bad. So cooldown of 4 for a self heal is actually pretty good for PvP defense. That's actually very important, because depending on the team that you pair him with, if there's any other energy generation, that self heal every few turns is actually it's going to be very disruptive for PvP attackers. Even if it's not something that piles on extra damage to the attacking team that's coming at you, it's just 1 extra turn that somebody has to spend attacking you and attacking Koros. And that's all the turns that your team can be using to dish out the damage. Um, Most of the time, if your PvP team hasn't won by the end of the third turn, you're probably not winning in the first place, because all of your skills have just gone off of cooldown. With a short cooldown on this one, that keeps them around at least a little bit long enough to continue that pursuit. All right, his second ascension, 15, 5, 3, and 3. Still ultimately not terribly expensive. It could have been Celestials all across the board, which honestly, I think in the past it did require a lot of Celestials, but that's speculation and not fact at this point here. So let's check out his character art. It goes from stripes to a couple of, we'll call them tattoos. But he did get a little bit more character art. He is now as menacing as we, expect him to be. I do like his back spines. That makes him look a little bit badass. Um, but I'm less interested in what he looks like and more interested in what he actually does. His final trait that he got is Tenacious Soul. So after the first time Koros is defeated, she resurrects. I did not know Koros was a female. So fun fact there. She resurrects at 50% of her max health. Now is that's already another interesting mechanic. So self-resurrection, um, that's PvP gold mine right there. Absolute gold mine. So without even using Koros at all, really, throw throw Koros on your PvP defense and see what happens. Just make sure you complement her with somebody who's actually gonna be able to take out teams. All right, that said, whenever Koros is resurrected, she gains one energy for each other ancient ally on the team. Okay, I don't know about the each other from what we've read with syntax and semantics like this. The each other will, in this case, require someone else to be ancient. He will, she will not be her own ancient ally in this case because of the word other. Um, so while you can expect to resurrect, getting that extra bonus energy back, depending if you got somebody else good that's ancient that's gonna pair with her, um, let the good times roll if you want. But the idea of her resurrecting, that's immediately going to tell me that her health pool is probably a bit on the low side, and that she is going to be prone to death. But what this ultimately does is, yeah, she dies, but it's going to give you that opportunity to get, at the very least, your first skill off. I don't anticipate her dying on the opening salvo, so if you put her first in the rotation, she is going to get to go first. Um, but that's speculation as well. The health pool and defense would have to be absolutely atrocious to never get that first skill off. And speaking of the skills, the final skill is Stupefying Sting. Stupefy, like in Harry Potter, should be stunning, which, yes, it is. Melee physical attack on target enemy for a number that applies stun for 2 turns and 3 stacks of poison. Poison is like burn. Um, there must be some difference between the two of them. I haven't looked at it specifically because otherwise they would be the exact same thing. Both of them do dot damage, which why even have two different mechanisms for it? So aside from catering to another hero that might feed off of it with fire versus poison. Versus like chill or shocked things like that, elemental type stuff that would just be a way to cater to a particular hero. Um, so it's a regular physical attack that stuns. I do like stun. Stun mechanic has been very disruptive in PvP. It doesn't stop anybody from attacking, but um, not being able to use your skills for several turns is absolutely crippling in PvP. Utilizing this one here, 5 turn cooldown, pretty standard for a loadout like this. One with a high cooldown, one with a low cooldown, and then obviously one with a medium cooldown. Um, Being that it's a 5 to start with PvP offense, you're probably not going to see this too often. PvP defense, this could be one of those clutch things where you come around to turn 3 just as the attacker's starting to gain momentum. Somebody gets stunned. Hopefully, at that point, you have some energy regeneration somewhere that gets some of your PvP defense back into the swing of doing abilities and finishing up that run there. Um, but all things considered, like I said, Koros is shaping up to be quite something. Um, from my own personal experience here, there should be absolutely no reason why you cannot 6-star her. You'll see that we're not even done with the event yet, and I'm at 247. So just by virtue of the the calendar doors, there's a lot of tokens right there to get the final 250. There's going to be 140 of them, provided that it's 10 per day. I don't expect that the doors are going to reopen, otherwise that would be 280. 280 would mean that everybody can 6-star her without literally doing anything other than running some dungeons and getting some gold keys, which it's not hard to get gold keys if you haven't maxed out your gold keys to the point where you got all the doors covered. That's on you. That is not on me. For my part, though, I did run the dungeon a number of times. I didn't know what the doors were going to shake out to at first, so initially when I was running dungeons, and I needed the colored dungeons or the elemental dungeons for each of these storylines, I was running these and refreshing hero tokens on them. So I ran each of them, 50 to 100 times, just because of all the dungeons that I needed. So anybody that needed fire dungeons, like when I was leveling up Lily, I ran Mage Mountain and refreshed Koros tokens every time. And for anybody wondering, when we have events like this, there's this consensus that you should be running the event dungeon to get those, rare and legendary tokens, and to try and max out that hero. And then it's like, well, it's 100 gems to refresh it once it's at its high limit. And then people say, well, you need 250 tokens, and so 250 times 100, and that's we can do the math there. That's um, 25,000 gems, right? Well, it's really not, because one, you only refresh it the one time until you get the tokens again, then you do it again. So it's not like you're doing it over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And that's also assuming that literally every single time you collect a token, you're collecting only one token. There's going to be a lot of instances where you collect 2 tokens. There's going to be some instances where you collect 3 tokens. And so the overall price does go down quite a bit. But at the same point, there are so many of these tokens given away in this event, you certainly will not need even 10,000 gems to level up. But definitely consider that when the next event rolls around and you see somebody like Jin tokens in there. If there's Jin tokens in there, you should be doing everything in your power to grab every single one of those, because you will likely be able to spend less than 10,000 gems and get nearly all the tokens that you actually need. So don't be afraid to spend your gems. Just don't spend them needlessly, like on gold, for example. I have just recently started to look at the shop here and look at the deals. So you can see I just bought, believe it or not, I bought Dagon tokens, just because I wanted Dagon tokens. And so obviously they're not that expensive. I think his were maybe 30, even if they're 40 or 50, it didn't really matter. There's only 5 of them, so we're talking a couple of hundred gems per day. With the way that the treasure goblins give out gems, it's not hard to replace that stuff. So do I care about Stonefist or Sybil? No, I'm probably not going to use either of them anytime soon. And I'm still kind of hoarding my gems. I'm always worried that I'm going to need thousands and thousands of gems, because I don't know what the devs are doing next. If this notion of quick loot comes back, I don't know if I still have the quest for it, but quick loot is a thing. So yeah, my quest is gone. There's no completed tab, but there is a thing that says complete or quick loot dungeons. And there might be a cost associated with that. What if it costs gems to do quick loot? I want to make sure that I have gems for anything that I want to do. So, um, but that is our look at Koros. Like I said, without even using her, I can tell you Koros in Gold League is going to be a gold mine, provided that you have XP potions. If you are a newer player and you are in that level 25 range, maybe 30, right where the point where you're starting to finish a good chunk of storylines, you're going to be sitting pretty, because it's not going to be hard to get your Koros up to level 25, 30, 40 with the XP potions that you got, and be hyper competitive at those PvP levels. Where someone like me, it was the hard PvP all the way through, and then just a couple of weeks ago it switches to leagues, and then I could have been doing some other PvP for months, for example, if I had silver, because I could have worked on certain teams, and I opted to not do that in favor of storylines. But I'm giving my stamp of approval on this one. Essentially sight unseen. Koros is going to be Koros is going to be great at Gold League. I can all but guarantee it. Now, the team that goes with Koros, I don't know yet, and I'm not going to be able to figure it out. I'm working on my next week's Silver League team, and I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting on XP potions and hoping that I can get enough to be at least around level 70 for my full team, and then go at another silver team, and then maybe try to get into some gold league. But I might be trolling around in silver league for a while until I can get some of my heroes leveled up, and it'll give me a chance to see what the devs are doing as far as game updates. But that is my unboxing of Koros. Stick around next week. Next week is going to be, probably just saw him in the background if you're watching, but Gore Tusk is plopping around in there. Gore Tusk will be next week. I expect the event to be over at that point. Gore Tusk should be 6 stars for me. Um, he should be for you as well. Um, but stick around for that one. And otherwise, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or something you'd like to see, feel free to hit me up. Otherwise, have a great day. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Thank you for watching, and remember, I make YouTube videos for the American working man, 'cause that's what I am, and that's who I care about.